Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. If only my sis had paid attention in her computer science class, she would have known a little something about how tech systems work. At least she'd be able to understand the basics of cloud storage, which, to be honest, is simpler than cooking noodles. So I work as a software developer for an IT company. And for me, cybersecurity is a big concern, even with trusted sources. So I have set all my devices to back up data to my cloud storage instantly. And it's not limited to mere texts or pictures. All my mail, auto call recordings, and even the design softwares I work on are all connected to different accounts that back up data to clouds. Now, I know how dangerous it can be to put all your eggs in one basket, and that's why I have several IDs logged in for each device I own. Both my phones, my Mac, my PC, and my tab have different accounts which I use to sign in. All these accounts are synced with the cloud, and I access all of these through my tab that I always carry with me. My tab is the only device in which I have logged in with all my accounts so that it will be easier for me to access them all at one place if I need to. Of course, my sis had no idea about this, and she proceeded to do something very stupid. Also, my husband and I have been going through a divorce. We had been married for 8 years with a 5-year-old daughter. I never realized how toxic my relationship was until I saw my daughter suffer from the same narcissistic and passive aggressive behavior that I missed before. My husband always had a way with words, and generally, whenever I felt a bit off about any situation, he would say things like, I've been very stressed lately, or maybe I should lie down a little bit and rethink the whole matter. By the end of us discussing a problem, I'd always feel like I overreacted or was overthinking a lot. The way he controlled me was so subtle, yet effective, that I didn't even realize I was being manipulated into feeling safe. To give you a better understanding, there were times when we'd go out with our friends, and I'd feel uncomfortable with how my husband behaved with his female friends. Someone would crack a joke, which would lead to our whole group bursting out into laughter. Now, as common as it is for people to laugh with their whole body, I was very uncomfortable with the skinship my husband would have going on with other women. At first, I thought I was being insecure, so I decided to keep quiet about it. But when it happened more than a few times, I decided to discuss it with him. As his wife, I was within my rights to talk about things that bothered me. But in the end, he'd make me feel like I was concerned for nothing, and it's perfectly all right for close friends to be that touchy. Then it happened with other stuff too. If I ever questioned his unreasonable expenses when we have to struggle just to make it to the end of a month, he'd start apologizing and being extra nice. Then, for the next week or so, he'd text me every single time he had to buy something, whether it was toilet paper or another batch of snacks for our daughter. That would again make me feel like I'm somehow controlling his life or taking away his freedom. It was hard to see through his manipulative behavior when it was happening to me. But when I saw him pull the same shit with my daughter, I started noticing how he worded his sentences and how sly his moves were. Once I saw through that, it wasn't hard to notice the times I was being coerced into feeling one way or the other. When I confronted him about the whole situation, of course he denied it. But it kept bothering me to the point where I had to talk to a friend of mine who is a psychologist. When she told me that my suspicions weren't unfounded, I decided to take some space from my husband to better analyze the situation I was in. That's when things went south. He gave up on subtlety and would openly blame me for causing a problem in our marriage. He also got violent a few times, and I had to run away from home. Now, I'm staying with my parents and have filed for divorce. When my husband found out about the legal case and that I also filed for sole custody of my daughter, he went ham and sent me a few threatening texts saying how he'll ruin my life if I didn't come to my senses. He said he's done being merciful and he needs me to understand how erratic and dumb my actions are, and that if I don't give him our daughter, he's going to make me come across as a lunatic and mentally unstable person. When I told my parents about this, they said to keep a screenshot and show those texts to the cops. Of course, I had backups and everything. The next day, I asked my sister to come with me to the station while I made my report, and that's when she tried to delete those texts. I was going to grab us coffee on our way when she took out my phone, saying she couldn't find hers and would call from mine to see if it's in the car or not. Then we went to the station, and as I was going to show them the texts, I saw the whole conversation was missing. Thankfully, I had my tablet with me, and after loading a backup file, I was able to show them everything. But I was also very suspicious of my sister at that moment because my daughter never touches my phone. And the night before, when I went to bed, the messages were still there. So I came back home and checked the backlogs on my phone. It wasn't hard to find as I already had the program I used for official purposes, and retrieving data from my own account was easy. The modification history showed the texts were deleted when we were going to the station, and I knew instantly my sister was the only one who did that. Now that I know she's actually taking my husband's side, I'm going to find out what their relationship actually is, because no way she's doing this because he's her brother in law. I already suspect my husband must have manipulated her too, but still, she's an adult and is capable of making her own decisions. My daughter's custody is not a light matter, and if she's going to pull something like this behind my back, then I'm dragging her into this mess too. Will that make me an a-hole? Just because I know what it's like to be manipulated, should I cut her some slack and let this slide? So, I told you about my sister and how she actually tried to mess up my case by trying to delete texts that could have helped me massively in getting my divorce and my daughter's custody. Well, instead of trying to talk to her and revealing to her that I know she's helping my husband, I kept on pretending that everything is fine. I wanted to take her phone and see her conversations or calls with my husband. So I asked her if I could come and stay with her for the weekend. I told her everything that's going on in my life has been very stressful, and I just want to get away from it all for one day. I was going to leave my daughter with my parents. Of course, she agreed, and I went over last Saturday. I was hoping to sneak into her phone while she was busy and was glad when she said she's going to take a shower before starting on dinner. I told her I'd wait for her and she should take her time. Once she was gone, I took her phone and went through her call logs and messages. The conversation I saw shocked me. I did think that something was going on, but I had no idea it was going on since before I separated. The text messages went back to 4 months, and it was clear from the way they were talking that it was an affair. Just because I saw this coming didn't make it any less easier, and I didn't even have the time to process what I was seeing because I needed to take them as proof. I couldn't stay under the same roof with my sister after that. I told her Stacy had come down with a fever and came back home. It's been 2 days since then, and I still haven't processed the whole thing. I don't know what to do right now, or whether I should tell my parents about all this or not. I moved out of my parents' house and have been living in a 2-bedroom apartment that was closer to my workplace. It was hard to see the pity in their faces, and I wanted to be away from everyone. I couldn't forgive my sister for what she did, and there was no way to drag her to court without my parents finding out. So I naturally told them. It was hard for my dad to believe that his younger daughter was having an affair with a married man. And on top of that, the man is none other than his elder daughter's husband. They had a huge row the day I told my parents, and they cut my sister off completely. I couldn't pity her at all in that situation. Since then, my parents were either too angry for what happened or too sad because of how both their daughters were essentially living a ruined life. I couldn't bear to see their expressions, so I moved out. I also filed a case against my sister and have added additional charges onto my divorce case. Now that I have proof that my husband was cheating on me, there's no way he was going to win the custody battle. Even if he somehow proved that even after cheating he's a competent parent, he wouldn't be able to fight the abuse charges. I'm just hoping that all this goes smoothly, considering how much it costs me in legal fees. Finally, after 4 months, there's something good about my life. I tried to make my sister pay for adultery and alienation of affection, but just as luck has it, the laws changed last year, and it's not illegal anymore to be an adulteress in Texas. So her case went nowhere, and there was nothing I could do. The only thing that her affair had helped me with was getting a higher share of estate in my divorce. It was finalized 2 weeks ago, and I couldn't be happier anymore. My husband got the house because I refused to do anything with that place and instead chose to be paid in finances. I spent the last 2 weeks relaxing and trying to put this all behind me. I was able to get custody of my daughter with my ex being allowed supervised visitation twice a month. It's not to my liking, and if I could have it my way, I'd want him completely out of our lives. But unfortunately, I can't do that, and it's better this way because at least my daughter would know who her father is. I just hope things will get better and I'll be able to raise her so that she grows up to be a mentally strong and confident woman whom no one can manipulate. NTA, I'm glad you were able to recognize that even a happy relationship can sometimes be toxic in ways we don't understand. You're definitely not the a-hole. And if my sister did something like that, I'd be kicking her out of the house. NTA, no way you're an a-hole here. I bet your sister is having an affair, and I'm calling it right now. Be careful and don't tell her anything anymore. Better yet, move out and keep her away from your daughter. My husband and I are discussing trying for our second child. His mother, whole family, was mad with our first. We didn't tell them in some creative way, we just kind of told them. They made my entire pregnancy miserable. They make my life miserable when I'm around them, but they stepped it up when I was pregnant. His mom stressed me out so much I had horrible blood pressure and anxiety about being near her. I had hypermesis and was sick constantly to the point that I lost 42 pounds in the first 4 months. They would tell me I'm fine and guilt me into going out or coming to parties or dinner. I'd spend half the time throwing up and would get called dramatic. Mother-in-law told me she was disappointed I was pregnant, ruined my baby shower because I let my sister plan it and not them. Like it was truly so awful we didn't tell them when I gave birth and told them a week later. His family would ask to cook us a meal, and we would say yes, and then they never actually did it. Like, not once. They threw fits when I didn't bring the baby over on demand and called me lazy, 2 weeks, PP, because our lawn wasn't mowed, and my C-section hurt like hell for weeks. My family never pressured me into anything. They checked in, brought dinner, never felt entitled to my time, especially during my recovery. It was great. Now, onto the issue. When we get pregnant next, I want to pull a Kylie Jenner and not tell anyone but my sister until after the baby's born. Having nobody know sounds so peaceful and relaxing. My husband isn't excited about that idea. He thinks it would upset his family if we don't tell them. And while I know it would, I 100% cannot go through my last pregnancy again. He knows they were awful and confronted them about it, but he still thinks we should tell them. He will ultimately do what I want, but thinks I would be an a-hole to not tell anyone. So, would I be an a-hole if I didn't tell anybody when I'm pregnant again? We are currently low contact with his family. My husband is a victim of their abuse as well. As anybody who has survived abuse knows, it can be very difficult to cut off abusers. He spent almost 24 years putting up with their gaslighting and manipulation before he met me. He does try to stand up to them, but they are very good at making him feel horrible. They the "oh, we're your parents" card, and we supported you, blah, blah, blah. They very much were the type to withhold love unless he was doing exactly what they wanted. When they start to act like this, I think he turns into that scared little boy who only wanted to do things to make his parents happy and love him. Please don't talk poorly of him. He's a good husband and father, and he really is trying. Birth worker here. NTA. Screw your husband's family. That shit can be damaging to you and your baby. Low key, your husband is a little TA for not putting his foot down, especially with the hypermesis. You, WNBTA, considering the stress your husband's family put on you during your first pregnancy, causing you to be affected not only emotionally but physically. Do what you need to do to protect yourself and your child, and if that means keeping it a secret, then do so. On the other side, if they weren't happy about how you gave them the news the first time, they don't have to be told the second time. I, 20, female, am the second eldest daughter of my father. I have an older sister, Val, 23, female, a younger sister, Isa, 14, female, a younger half-brother, Ty, 3, male, and a younger half-sister, Jeslyn, nearly 2, female. There's also my step-siblings, Janae and Heejin, 9, male, and 8, female. My father recently told us that his wife is pregnant again. When we weren't enthusiastic about it, he got upset and said we should be excited for another sibling. I said that another sibling just means more babysitting for us and that it isn't fair on us. If he wants a lot of kids, he needs to be home a lot more than he is and needs to put his children first. He's his own boss and he can choose what hours he works, so he has no excuse to never be home. If he is home, he's mostly doing the devil's tango with our stepmother. Vel and I have always been expected to be babysitters. However, due to my job, I travel for work quite often, so it usually falls on Vel. Vel is 8 months pregnant with her own second child and is already raising her own 3-year-old. He said that he works to provide for us, and I said that's fine, but he needs to be at home more. He doesn't need to stop work, but he needs to be at home more. I said I'm fine providing for our family as I have the money, so long as it means he's home more because we would rather not be babysitters. He said that it's selfish to not want to help out around the family. I lost my temper and said he's the selfish one by having so many kids and expecting his eldest to just babysit despite us both having kids ourselves. He said we're choosing to take care of them, to which I replied we really had no choice because he was basically forcing us to take care of them. And if we didn't, they'd end up neglected. My sister literally has no life of her own because of this. She can't get a job because she can't be away from our siblings whilst I'm away for work. Otherwise, they get neglected. She can't have a dating life for the same reason. She can barely even see her friends. Our stepmother tries when our father's at work, but she's really struggling with depression, disability, and a custody battle with her ex over their two kids. So she needs our help. We're happy to help her because she genuinely is struggling but is trying her best. He's just not trying. I said he needs to stop having kids until he can man up and raise them properly. He said he does his best and I'm an ungrateful a-hole and I can start looking for my own place because he's sick of my attitude. AITA? Please stop saying to move out with my sister. She has a place with her friends. She just rarely stays there because of our dad. I'm also moving out soon, hopefully, to raise my son. My sister has a child and is pregnant with the second because of a traumatic experience, and she's not comfortable aborting. My stepmother doesn't use birth control because my father doesn't want her to, and she'll do anything to please him. I talked to my stepmom. She said she really doesn't want this child or any more. I told her I'll tell my father and make it very clear. And if he doesn't listen, I'll take her to get an abortion and to have her tubes tied whilst he's at work. Yeah, he'll be mad. Yeah, I'll probably get disowned, but I don't care. NTA, I think it's high time you and your sister moved out. Keep an eye on your younger siblings because they will be next up for babysitting and be prepared to intervene for them. Your dad sounds like a real piece of work, but I don't think telling is going to work. Show him the consequences. NTA, if he's going to get more babies, he got to take responsibility for them. Taking care of kids is the responsibility of the parents or legal guardians, not siblings. Your dad only loves to do the bedroom stuff and office. He ain't doing shit around the house.